Do you remember earlier today when I said, stop acting like all hope is lost because the big, nasty, bloated budget bill has passed the Senate and has been kicked back to the House? Do you remember how I said it's not over until it's over? That what should have been a super easy bill for Trump to pass at the beginning of his presidency, when he controls both the House and the Senate, has turned into a political disaster for him and also for all Republicans in Congress. And thus we need to keep fighting because this fight is not yet over. I'm not one to gloat and say I told you so, but just hours after the Senate version of the budget resolution has been passed, we are now hearing that Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, is facing, quote, a GOP revolt on Trump's big, beautiful bill. Also, bless whatever editor at Axios picked this picture of Mike Johnson to go with their story. So it looks like now House Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican from Louisiana, is facing an explosion of internal anger amongst his members over the Senate's changes to President Trump's big, beautiful bill. Now, earlier today, I said that Republicans had set this July 4th deadline to pass this legislation, not because that's some legislative requirement. It's simply because they are anxious to cram this bill down the throats of the American people. The longer they take, the more the American public finds out about this bill. The stronger the opposition becomes, the more outraged people are, the more they contact their Republican electeds saying, motherfucker, you vote for this bill and I will vote your ass out in the midterms. So they want to get it passed really, really quickly, so that there isn't time for enough public opposition to build, enough pressure to be put on electeds to have them withdraw their vote, right? And we're seeing more and more Republicans withdraw their support. They are expressing concern in public, even if in the end some of the senators like Josh Hawley did vote for this legislation. They have come out and said, this is a really bad scene for us, y'all. This could spell disaster in the midterms. And we are seeing Republicans in both the House and the Senate outright opposing this bill. The longer we drag this out, and mad props here to the Democrats who demanded that the bill in the Senate be read and who did a vote-a-rama trying to add a bunch of amendments, the longer we can drag this out, the more opposition can build and the more the chances of us being able to stop this legislation altogether. Because ultimately, y'all, the power still lies with the people. And it's Republicans who don't want us to realize that. They want to act like they are powerful, their plans are inevitable, and they want to hurry up and move things along because they don't want y'all to have time to be pissed off, because they know ultimately they will have to bow to the electorate. So the easiest way for Republicans to meet this artificial July 4th deadline is for them to take the version of the resolution that just passed in the Senate. It's now going over to the House. And if the House votes on that bill as is and it passes, that is the quickest way to get it onto Donald Trump's desk and in front of his auto pen. However, there are a lot of Republicans that are really pissed about several measures, several changes that the Senate has made. And so what it appears is much more likely to happen now is that the version that the Senate passed is going to go to the House, and they're going to knock off a bunch of those changes, make new changes of their own, and then that can't go to the president's desk, y'all. That now has to go back to the Senate where they have to vote on it. And then maybe they'll make changes and it'll be back and forth and back and forth. The reason that this is happening is because Republicans know how deeply unpopular this bill is. They know how disastrous this bill will be for them. And so they are not anxious to vote through the bill as is, despite pressure from Republican leadership, despite pressure from Donald Trump that he will primary them. So Christo-fascist Speaker of the House Mike Johnson is shitting a brick a little bit. He said, "We knew the Senate would amend the House product. I encouraged them to amend it as lightly as possible. They went a little further than many of us would have preferred." Republican Congressman Ralph Norman of South Carolina is now saying our bill has been completely changed. The Senate's version of the bill is a non-starter. According to Axios reporting, more than 20 Republicans in the House are threatening to vote no on the bill as it stands now without any changes. Remember, they only need 3 Republicans to flip and vote with the Democrats in order to kill this bill. Now, keep in mind, there are several Republicans who are opposed to the Senate's version of the bill, not because they care about you and me, not because they care about people who are going to lose their health care. The Senate version will deprive almost 17 million people of their health care if it passes. It's not because They're opposed to funding ICE and turning it into the American Gestapo, unleashed in every community across America, where they can terrorize migrants, where they can act above and outside of the law with their identity obscured, no warrants, coming in and violating folks' rights willy-nilly. No, they're not opposed to any of that. It's actually that they think the Senate's version of the bill doesn't go far enough. Republican Chip Roy from Texas is frustrated that they aren't making more spending cuts. They aren't cutting more programs that matter to Americans. And then you have Republicans who claim to be fiscal conservatives who oppose the greater expansion of the deficit, right? Including Victoria Sparts, who is a Republican from Indiana. And I've talked about her before because she's a real piece of work, but she represents the district where all my relatives live in Indiana. Now, keep in mind, Mike Johnson made a promise earlier this year that conservatives could remove him as Speaker of the House if he didn't successfully deliver $1.5 trillion in spending cuts. But that's not what's happening. Instead, all of the programs that we care about and Americans depend on that are being slashed are being wiped out basically by giant tax cuts for the super, super wealthy up here, and then funding the American Gestapo known as ICE for the next 10 years to the tune of billions and billions and billions of dollars. So it's not over until it's over, y'all. This is an ongoing, developing situation. Please stop writing fictions where you think you know the end of the story because you are 12 pages into the book. Please stop forecasting. Please stop trying to tell the future. The future is not yet written. And don't hand the future over to the fascists and let them get to write it. We, the American people, get to write it. You need to be calling your elected officials. You need to be calling and emailing. You know what? Set up an appointment with their staff and talk to them face to face. Call daily. Use the 5 Calls app if that's easier for you. You need to be on the horn, flooding their office, flooding their inbox, letting them know, especially in the House, because all of them are up for re-election. They need to know if there's money for raids, there's money for Medicaid. If they decide that they want to give giant tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans, and in order to fund that, they are depriving millions and millions and millions of Americans of their health care. They are taking food away from hungry children. Then we're voting those motherfuckers out. I know Mitch McConnell said they'll get over it. No, we're not going to get over it, Mitch. We're not going to get over it. We will not forget that you are taking health care away from 17 million Americans. You are taking food aid away from America's poorest children in order to give the billionaires a giant tax cut. We will not forget that you are ballooning the national debt so that billionaires can get a giant tax cut and so that you can expand the terror organization known as ICE so that it can absolutely wreak havoc all across America. We know that you are the ones that are putting this legislation through when the American people overwhelmingly are opposed to it. Every single poll out there says that Americans oppose this bill by at least a 2-to-1 margin. And if you explain to them the details of what's in this package, how it's going to result in hospitals closing all across this country, how everyone with health insurance will see their expenses go way up and their ability to access care go way down, yeah, then it becomes something like 80+% of people oppose it. Even Republicans oppose this legislation. It's political suicide for any Republican who votes for it. And we need to remind them of that. If you vote for this shit, we vote you out. We will not forget. When we show up at the polls in the midterms, we won't forget what you've done now. So you make your choice. You make your choice. Don't be worried about whether Donald Trump is going to primary you or not. You need to be worried about what we, the voters, are going to do if you vote through this horrible, big, bloated, nasty bill.